Christopher Rufo, who's done a great job exposing critical race theory in schools, he's over at the Manhattan Institute. Chris Rufo has just come upon some private footage of an all-hands call at Disney, a video call, where the Disney corporate president described her multiple trans and pansexual children and called for more LGBTQ leads in Disney movies.
I'm here as a mother of two queer children, actually, one transgender child and one pansexual child, and also as a leader. And that was the thing that really got me, because I have heard so much from so many of my colleagues over the course of the last couple of weeks in open forums and through emails and phone conversations. And I feel a responsibility to speak, not just for myself, but for them, to all of us. We had an open forum last week at 20th where, again, the home of really incredible, groundbreaking LGBTQIA stories over the years, where one of our execs stood up and said, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. And I realized, it actually is true. We have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads.
An issue, a sexual and ideological issue that affects an extraordinarily small percentage of the population, that is represented in an extraordinarily large proportion of the media and in the classrooms and in the corporate boardrooms. The problem, we are told, is that it's not represented enough. Trans Visibility Day. We need Trans Visibility Day. The issue is visible, folks. The issue is visible. The elites in every sphere of our society are pushing it. They're shouting it from the rooftops. The corporate president of Disney says that it's very important that we have not just more LGBT, LMNOP characters in our movies. There are already a lot. But we need more LGBT, LMNOP leads. There are actually already a lot, but we need more. And she says this because she's the parent, she's the mother of a transsexual child and a pansexual child. Now, she's not. She is not the mother of a transsexual and a pansexual. She, I'm sure, is the mother of these two children, and I have no doubt that these children are confused. I don't doubt her that they have sexual confusion. But she is not the mother of a transsexual and a pansexual, because those are not real categories of being. I'm not denying anybody's existence. I'm not saying that anyone is invisible, to use the language that is so popular these days on the left. But the people that we're talking about here are not transsexual or pansexual as the newest. I don't know what, I think pansexual is just a high-class version of bisexual. I don't exactly know what even the meaning, the purported meaning of pansexual is, but whatever it is, these people are not that, because it's not a real category of being, because a man cannot secretly be a woman. It's just not possible. Lump that one away with Bigfoot and the boogeyman. It's not real. The confusion that these people have may be real. A psychological problem that they have might be real, or a social problem, which it seems to be the case, as these minor, relatively small issues in terms of the population have now exploded to a huge proportion of Gen Z in particular. So it might be, the social problem might be real, the confusion might be real, but the actual condition is not, because it is not possible. I repeat it because we seem to be so confused. It is not possible for a man to secretly be a woman, or for a man to become a woman, or for a man to change his... It is not... Sometimes the left will tell you, well, Michael, sex and gender are different. Sex is not gender. And they say that, and they have a lot of confidence when they say that, but it doesn't mean anything. It's not true. They simply declare it, but they don't provide any evidence for that. What they seem to be insinuating is that sex is physical and gender is metaphysical. But then you have to probe that question further. You say, okay, well, where is gender? Gender is not in the brain, it's not in the body, it's not in the genitals, it's not in the chromosomes. So what is gender? It's non-physical. Okay, it would seem that you're talking about the soul, right? You're talking about the human soul. And very often at that point, they'll say, no, absolutely not. The soul is not real. We're just talking, I'm talking about the brain. Okay, well, if you're talking about the brain, then you're saying it's physical. So now you're saying that sex and gender are physical, and yet your physicality can be both male, and entirely female. That's not possible. That violates the law of non-contradiction. We've known that since old Uncle Aristotle. Well, even if they go and say, okay, gender is non-physical. Let's say they'll say that gender is socially constructed. Okay, if it's socially constructed, then reconstruct it. If it's causing you this great deal of suffering, and one of them is immutable, your body, your physique, and then the other one is changeable, your socially constructed gender identity, then just reconstruct it. That's pretty easy. Problem solved. Why would you undergo painful, destructive surgeries and hormone therapies when you could just change the social construction? Well, no, because it's back in the body. Okay, then we're back to square one. It's an incoherent ideology that benefits absolutely no one and is driving society crazy because a bunch of elites can't work through their own personal problems, and because a bunch of elites are in thrall to an extraordinarily stupid and destructive ideology. It's not just this woman. It's not just this lady who what are the odds, has 2 trans and pansexual children. The odds of having one, even according to the most generous statistics, are infinitesimally small. The odds of having 2, maybe there's something more going on here. Either there is something in the water and Alex Jones is right, or maybe there's something more going on socially. Maybe there's something more going on within the family. Maybe there's something going on ideologically. A Disney production manager was also caught on this open call, claiming that we need more LGBT, LMNOP representation all over the place in Disney.
I've had the privilege of working with the Moon Girl team for the last 2 years, and they've been really open to exploring queer stories. And I'm on the production side. Part of the work that I feel like I can put in is making sure that we take place in modern day New York. So making sure that that's like an accurate reflection of New York. So I put together like a tracker of our background characters to make sure that we have like the full breadth of expression. And we got into a very similar conversation, Carrie, of like, oh, all of our like gender nonconforming characters are in the background. And so it's not just a numbers game of how many LGBTQ plus characters you have. We got the further, the more centered a story is on a character, the more nuanced you get into their story. And especially with like trans characters, you can't see if someone is trans. There's not one way to look trans. And so kind of the only way to have these like canonical trans characters, canonical asexual characters, canonical bisexual characters is to give them stories where they can like be their whole selves.
Canonical transsexual we don't just need the characters, we need canonical transsexual and canonical asexual characters where they can be themselves. That's the funniest part of all. That's the funniest part of all, because the transgender ideology explicitly says, as that commenter made clear at the top, it explicitly says, don't be yourself. Be an imaginary version of yourself. Be a fantasy. Be the way that you would prefer that yourself to be rather than the way that you are in reality. It's the opposite of living authentically. It's the opposite of living your true life. Even asexuality. Man is a sexual being. Sex is very important to human nature. As we all know, that's why we're debating sex so much in our politics. We need more of these characters. It made me think, Disney is just over. Disney's just completely over. I like Disney. I was never a crazy Disney kid. I didn't watch the Disney Channel. I wasn't gaga over the movies, but I liked them. In particular, I liked Pinocchio. I liked The Lion King. I liked the movies. I watched them as a kid. I liked the older ones, Snow White. And those movies really were great. And I don't just want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy man saying everything's worse these days, but it is worse. If you're now taking really important aspects of human nature, the love between a man and a woman at the center of the sort of the human world, at the center of society, if you take that away, if you deny sex and sexual reality, if you deny the things that motivate people, and instead you superimpose political correctness on top of it, which is a denial of reality. Ultimately, it's a denial of reality. Well, then the movies are not going to be as good. And we know that the movies aren't as good. I'm not saying Disney only makes total crap these days, but the movies that Disney is making today are worse than the movies that Disney made 30 years ago, and they're worse than the movies that Disney made 60 and 70 years ago. So we've still got the old movies. If you have them on DVD or something, good for you. Download them now, save them, because Disney is over. You can't, in good conscience, expose your kids to this crap. Not even because it's going to completely ruin their lives, although if they're peddling transgenderism, it won't help. But just because they're just not good movies. They're not going to be edifying if the stories they're telling are contrary to human nature and contrary to reality. And these are the lunatics who are running Disney now. These people who think that the most important thing to do in children's programming is peddle far left sexual ideologies. Before we close out Disney, we've got the executive producer, LaToya Raveneau, talking about how it's so important in Disney. One thing that she has really taken up is queering, that's a verb, I guess, everything.
Our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. And so I feel like I felt like it was, maybe it was that way in the past, but I guess something must have happened in the last, they're turning it around, they're going hard. And then all that momentum that I felt, that sense of, I don't have to be afraid to let's have these two characters kiss. Let's in the background. I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness to if you see anything queer in the show, I'm proud family. But I just was no one would stop me, and no one was trying to stop.
Everywhere. It's everywhere. The Senate candidate, Republican Senate candidate Blake Masters, he tweeted out the other day in response to one of these crazy issues. He said, "Not everything has to be gay. We're not saying nothing, but not everything, not every single thing." Why is this even coming up? Because Florida passed a law saying that kindergarten through third grade teachers, can't preach transgenderism and sex in the classroom. This should have been common sense. You shouldn't need a law for that. That should be so obvious. And in response, Disney, a children's entertainment company, said, no, that's too far. If we can't teach transgenderism to kids, if we can't queer everything, if we can't groom little kids, let's call it what it is, then we're going to fight back. We're going to fight back in Florida, around the country. It is unconscionable to give your money to Disney at this point. We need to figure out an alternative. Did you like that clip? Hold on. Whether you did or you didn't, I don't really care. Subscribe anyway. Ring that bell. Get the notifications. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Type in The Michael Knowles Show. Subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. We'll see you next time.